He kōna e purangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
So this is one of the only lab in the School of Science where you can do experiment on food and you can also eat the food at the same time.
Yeah. I see a coffee machine in the corner.
Yeah, we have a coffee machine. We have like canning machine. We have like all sorts of beer making machine and all that. Yeah.
It's quite unusual for a lab that you would be able to eat in it.
Yes, it is. Well, it is a food lab, so it'll be quite sad if you do experiment and not be able to eat your food that you make.
Kia ora, nau mai haramai ki te ao hurihanga. Hello and welcome to Our Changing Worlds. Ko Claire Concannon tēnei. Having been strictly trained during my time in science to never eat food in a lab, it's very odd to me when Dr. Rothman Kam starts handing me snacks to try. And the snacks themselves look a bit strange, kind of like light brown twigs.
There you go.
Okay.
You can describe.
Oh, it's so
good,
crunchy.
Yeah, good crunch.
It's kind of like a Weetabix flavour. Yeah. Or not flavour, texture.
Weetabix kind of texture.
Texture.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Now you can taste that woody taste, right?
Mm.
Yeah. So that it goes well with savory flavorings.
I really like it.
You really like it?
Yeah, I like it just by itself.
Really? Okay. Maybe we'll make like a ready salted version.
Rothman is a senior lecturer at Auckland University of Technology. And he says these snacks contain an ingredient that has bioactive compounds that might be good for us. Plant phenolic compounds with antioxidant properties.
It also has very high dietary fiber, around 20%. A lot of good minerals and vitamins as well.
So what are these super crunchy snacks made from? Well, Rothman's research expertise is in converting food waste to high-value products. And it was a visit to avocado oil producer Avocado in Kerikeri that sparked this particular idea.
I think a lot of the avocado oil producers, they all generate these avocado seed and they have no use for it, absolutely no use. And they just chuck it in the landfill. And such a waste of material. So I thought, hey, why don't we convert it into something useful? How about we just eat them?
That's right. These snacks have avocado seed in them. The particular snacks I'm eating were made up with a mixture of things, including chickpea flour, but they do have avocado seed powder in them. And Rothman makes it sound easy, but it was a bit more complicated than that. So how do you get from seed to snack?
If it's fresh, it's actually not as hard as you think. If you're looking at the same hardness as almond, you can actually break it apart with your fingers. If you put it in a blender, no problem, you can smash it easy. So that's the avocado seed. So we treat them and then we turn it into a powder and then we can use it as a food ingredient.
Once you have the powder, you can use it for all kinds of things. Add it to bread or biscuits, or, like Rothman has done to make the snacks I've tried, put it into the extrusion machine they have in the lab next door.
So this is what the extrusion machine looks like. Well, in industry, it would be like maybe 10 times bigger, but this is a small scale version, a lab scale. So how it works is this is called the extrusion shaft, and we put our avocado seed in here, and then it feeds it into this extrusion inlet. And then as it screws, as it like turns, this thing will spin, the extrusion screw, and the material would travel through this barrel, which is made out of cast iron, and it would generate heat as it travels along, and the temperature will reach around 140 degrees. So it's a very, very good machine that does the mixing and cooking at the same time, and then you saw the snack product will come out at the end here, like puffy snack.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a very shiny machine that's sitting on a trolley, about 1.5 meters in length, maybe?
Yeah, probably
and
around a meter.
A little hopper at the top.
Yeah, a little hopper at the top. That's right.
And that's where you're saying the seed would go in and then it comes out down this
exactly
little funnel.
Yeah, so we put like corn, like we put raw ingredients
So this is
untreated.
raw, unpopped corn.
And raw unpopped content. We have rice, so you feed it directly. You don't need it to do any cooking or treatment, and it does the cooking and everything.
So there's no chemical interaction that's happening
No
here.
chemical.
It's
It's 100% natural. So
it's heat and force.
that's right, heat and pressure. Yeah.
And this is used to make other kinds of snacks?
Yeah. So to give you an example, twisties, even cereals like Nutrigrains, Fruit Loops, Cocoa Pops. I think they're made out of extrusion as well. Yeah. So any of the puff snacks that you find in the supermarket has been made using the extrusion cooker. So this is not a new technology. It's been around for more than 70 years. So the novelty is the ingredient, the avocado seed. Yeah.
But you had a problem to solve with the avocado seed.
That's right. So the avocado seed has a bit of toxins in them, and it's also very bitter. So we've developed a technology to remove that bitterness and toxins in it to make it safe for human consumption. So we're in the process of getting that technology patented so it can protect the IP, so that when we do build up a business, perhaps one of our business model is to license this idea to snack manufacturers, and then we can get some kind of royalty fee from it.
Because this is the new bit. This is the bit that, as you say, the machine exists.
Yeah.
And, popping the avocado seed into the machine is
Yeah.
maybe not a major step, but the technique that you figured out
Yes.
to get rid of the toxicity,
Yeah.
that's the key.
That's the key. That's the barrier that kind of stops people from doing this. So we've believed that we've figured out that problem, made it safe for human consumption, and so now we're trying to protect that idea.
So when can we expect to see avocado snacks on our shelves? Or avocado seed snacks, I should say. We already have avocado snacks.
That's a very hard question to answer, because I can make it. We've got the prototype developed. We've got the product developed. We even look at the different flavorings that can complement this avocado seed. You're right, it's woody, and it goes really well with savory flavorings. Yeah. So in terms of when would you see this, because it is a novel food, it's not commonly consumed by humans. There's no historical evidence that people have been eating this. So the government do want to know that it is indeed safe for human consumption. So we have to go through a lot of regulatory testing, and that's going to take at most 3 years. We are trying to find ways to expedite that process. So it could be anywhere between a year to 3 years from now to see it on the shelf. Yeah.
All right. So those are the next steps for you.
Those are the next steps.
Getting the patent and making sure that the boxes you need to tick in terms of the regulation side.
That's right. The regulation side is the biggest hurdle for us at the moment.
Yeah. But the vision is that it would be commercialized.
It will be definitely commercializable. And we've done some pilot testing in the Food Bowl, which is a organization that helps startup companies to start up a food manufacturing business, and everything works out fine. It's just the regulation part that is kind of hindering us at the moment.
But if they can get past the regulation part, what kind of market might there be? And how many waste avocado seeds are there up for grabs?
Probably around 3 tons a day, because there's 3 avocado oil producers around New Zealand. So it's not just Olivado. There's the Grove and the Village Press, and they all use similar manufacturing processing techniques. And each factory generates around 1 ton a day, I guess, roughly. And if you combine them, it'll be 3 tons of avocado seeds a day going into the landfill. And I believe New Zealand is only 1% of the avocado oil production. So if you look at it globally, you're looking at lots and lots of tons of avocado seed.
So you're starting by looking at this problem here in New Zealand to see whether you can get this kind of high value snack product from the avocado seed, but it's got a potential to go global.
Actually, we want to start global because New Zealand market is just too small. Like I said, there's only 1 or 3 tons a day, which is not really a lot, to be honest. It sounds like a lot, but on a scale of things, it's not really that much. So we want to go global. We want like 1,000 tons a day kind of thing.
Diverting thousands of tons of avocado seeds from landfill to our supermarket shelves isn't the only thing this lab is working on. They've got other food waste in their sights.
We're converting fish waste into artificial skin. So that's one. And then the other one by Larry. He is converting the...
You're bringing me over towards another machine.
This is the freeze drying machine. So this is the spent grains from the beer industry. So the waste grains, usually they just either put in, most of it goes to landfill, 10% used as a fertilizer and 20% is used as animal feed, but most of it gets chucked into the landfill. So Larry is trying to extract the proteins out of it and then modify the protein and make it into what they call a bioactive peptide. So these proteins would have like functions. I'll let Larry explain what they are.
We'll get back to the fish waste skin. But first, Larry is a PhD student in Rothman's lab. Though that's not really his name.
Oh yeah, I love to introduce myself. I'm Larry. Actually, it's not my real name, which is a Western-friendly name, because my real name is Ha Minh Quoc. It's Vietnamese name, pure Vietnamese name.
To start, what are bioactive peptides, and where do they come from?
If you consume a lot of fermented food, yes, that's where the sort of bioactive peptides from. Because when you ferment them with bacteria can use the enzyme, can cook the protein in multitude ways. And they can create huge amount, like millions of bacterial peptide sequence that your body can absorb, or you can obtain something like cheese, yogurt. They are fermented bacteria and rich source of bioactive peptides, and so whey protein, because whey protein has been undergone the brewing of making cheese, and it has been crushed by the many enzymes. Then whey is another good source of bioactive peptides.
When we say peptides, we're talking about, people are probably familiar with proteins, which are the machinery of the cell, and they're these long strings of amino acids that work together to do different jobs. But when we talk about peptides, we're talking about really small pieces of protein, and that's what you're saying happens during the fermentation process.
Yeah, a protein is like a sequence of amino acids, and peptide is just a short fragments of protein, like from 2 to 20 amino acids, which have really good function.
There's so much of this brewer's spent grain, barley, malt and wheat, that goes to landfill. The question is, can they make use of it? If they add bacteria to it to ferment it, will it then produce helpful, useful bioactive peptides?
Actually, it did show some really good results out of it, like antioxidant, antimicrobials, and anti-obesity, which are really great for me. So I need to remove the water by freeze-drying first, and then grind them into the powders and mix it with bacteria to ferment them.
Freeze-drying is used to remove the water from the sloppy spent grain. You can't boil it off because the heat would damage the proteins. Instead, freeze-drying uses cold and pressure to drive out the liquid. Ha Minh Quoc, or Larry, is just over a year into his PhD, so it's still early days in this research. Meanwhile, Edward Quach is in the third year of his PhD. He's working on using the fish processing waste to make artificial skin to try help with wound healing.
When you go to a fishmonger, a lot of the time they would take the fillets off, and then there'll be a lot of waste, so such as the head, the bones, and the fins, and the like. That is a very underutilized food resource. So in a lot of cultures, like in Maori and Southeast Asian cultures, they would use the head and the like to make their own sort of dishes. So like fish head curry as an example, but that's only a small fraction of the waste that actually gets utilized. So a lot of those heads and the like either go into landfill or made into low-value products such as fish meal for the fish farms and the like. So my research is taking those waste streams and trying to make a higher value product out of it, in which case this is a form of artificial skin.
Artificial skin. Tell me more.
Okay, so the fish skin and that contains a lot of gelatin. What we want to do is we extract that gelatin out and and then we can cast that into like a sort of bioplastic to make your artificial skin. The problem with fish gelatin is that it's not as strong compared to gelatin that comes from, derived from bovine or pork gelatin. That's why you don't see it as much in the industry. But through some additional processing, we can try to make the film stronger so that you can actually use that for a wider variety of applications.
And when you say gelatin, that normally in the industry comes from beef and pork, this is the thing that sets jellies. Mm-hmm. So any lollies that are kind of that squishy jelly, mm-hmm. They'll probably have gelatin in them, right?
Yes. There will be some vegetarian alternatives such as agar, which can be used in place of gelatin.
Have you been working with different fishmongers in Auckland and then kind of getting waste streams from them and processing that to get this fish gelatin?
We collaborate with Sanford, and they provide us with the fish waste. Sanford has a lot of sustainability initiatives as well, where they want to reduce the same waste. So the fish heads and fish bones they also take that to convert into the fish meal. They also collaborate with other researchers as well throughout the industry. So can be in terms of extracting the fish oils. I know in South Korea a couple of years ago there was a big push for fish gelatin in terms of cosmetics use as well. So Sanford also helps with those sorts of projects.
Are there particular species of fish that you are dealing with?
So currently I'm dealing primarily with snapper, but in the future I do wish to try and cast these films from either terakihi or salmon fish byproducts, because the gelatin extracted from those different types of fish will also have different properties as well. In the ideal case, we would like to have it just be a sort of bulk process, so you can have a big mixture of different fish species together and then just do it all in one step. But for more in-depth exploration, we want to see the gelatin that you get from the different species, how that affects the final product as well. So for instance, salmon would have a lot more fat content to it. How would that sort of affect the gelatin that comes out compared to snapper or terakihi, which is, a white fish, which doesn't have as much fat.
And where did the idea of using the fish gelatin in terms of a bioplastic for skin come from? Has this been done elsewhere?
Fish gelatin as a refined product has been used to make these sorts of products before, but what's different for my project is that we want to remove some of the middle processing. So we take it directly from the fish waste and get to the output product, rather than taking the fish waste, refining it down to the gelatin, and then casting it into the final product. So we're removing a lot of middle processes to try and also reduce the waste that's also being generated in manufacturing the final product.
So how do you go about doing that?
First, we dry it just to remove all the excess water and make it harder, and then we grind that into a fine powder. Yeah, so this here is the dried fish waste that has been ground up into a powder.
This is really interesting because it just looks like a bag of sawdust.
Yeah, so this is so when we get the material in from Sanford, it is just the head, the bones, all completely intact. I have to remove the guts myself and then chop it up into smaller pieces, and then that all gets put into the freeze dryer to remove out all the water and and then that gets ground up into a powder, which is what you see here. It's not exactly a very fine powder because we just use a blade grinder to chop it up quite coarsely. It can be made finer if needed. And then from there, we can then use a water extraction. So similar to when you're making a stock or something like that, you'd boil it down to remove the gelatin out, and then we do some additional processing on that liquid that comes out to try and enhance the mechanical properties of it. I can't go too much into the exact processing for that because that is under a non-disclosure agreement for intellectual property.
That's your IP
yes.
that you would hope to patent at some stage?
Yes.
Okay. And so do you have any of the skin that you've made to show me?
Yes, I can show you a couple. You'll have to excuse the smell. It'll be a little bit fishy.
He's pulling out some plastic bags, and inside are discs of what look like amber to red jelly.
So these were a lot of the sort of earlier prototypes. So we do add some other processing, so changing the temperature at which we're processing, certain additives that we add to the processing to help increase the mechanical properties of the fish gelatin. You see here, so some of these are quite dark. And then some of these will be a bit lighter and the like. So
They do smell quite fishy.
that is something that we do hope to
smells like-
address as well
Yeah.
later on in the processing. So for my PhD so far, we've just get like the prototype to make sure we get the functional properties, so the drug diffusion and also like the mechanical properties down, and then the fish can be something that we will refine later on. Okay.
It smells like the fish food that you put into a tank for goldfish. That's what it reminds me of, the smell.
Yes, it does. So yeah, it's quite similar because like that fish meal that goes into the fish tank is sort of made from these sorts of fish processing waste as well.
It's quite like sticky. I didn't think it would be sticky. I thought it'd be kind of like a film. Well, it's a film on one side.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit sticky on the
So
other.
some of that is also just like the sort of fish oils that is still in there, but if it being a little bit sticky allows it to sort of stay. So the idea for the skin is that you can apply it onto like a burn wound or something like that. So part of the processing, we can put drugs into the film and then cast it into whatever shape we want. So I did work on a sort of 3D printed molding. So we can actually cast the liquid gelatin out into whatever shape to suit different applications and the like. So these prototypes were just done in like a petri dish, so just made into a disc. But for specific applications, we can create a custom 3D printed mold and cast the gelatin into that, dry it out, and then you can have a much better shape for whatever application you desire.
Ultimately, the goal is to have these artificial skins with healing applications that are made from waste through easy processing steps.
The idea is that we can infuse some anti-inflammatory drugs or antibiotics or something like. So once you apply that onto the wound, it becomes a more targeted measure of drug delivery. So a lot of these sort of drugs you would normally take in orally, and then it sort of diffuses out through the body. And this can be a very inefficient pathway to actually get the drugs to where it needs to be. So by infusing the drugs into the film and then applying that onto the wound, you get a more targeted drug delivery scheme. So then the drugs can actually get to where they need to, and for it to be an effective healing process.
And have you tried that kind of drug infusing step with these gelatin discs that you have?
This is going to be like the next part of my research project. So in the coming months, I will be loading the films with drugs and also testing how well the drugs diffuse out from the film into like a body simulated media, and then we can monitor how much drugs gets diffused out from the films.
As well as food waste, this lab is also looking at existing available New Zealand food products, ones that are not so well known, and exploring their properties and experimenting how to use them in other creative ways. For example, uses for yacon extract, which is a root from South America also grown in New Zealand, and making low alcohol beer out of a type of honey I had not heard of before.
Honeydew honey is honey that is not from a floral source. You know, a lot of the honey, like manuka honey, clove honey, thyme honey, they're bees that collect the nectar from flowers and then they make it into honey. Honeydew honey is when the bees collect the nectar from another insect. The bug is called the sooty beach bug. So the beach is not the beach that we go swimming in. The beech is the kind of tree. It's spelled Beech. The sooty beech bug, they bite into the tree trunks and then they suck the sap, and then they produce these sweet nectar out of their bum. And the bees would come and collect the nectars from the bum, and then they make honey out of it. So we have this honeydew honey.
Beer made from insect nectar honey, skin made from fish waste, and snacks made from avocado seeds. All from the science lab that you can eat in. Thanks to Dr. Rothman Kam, Han-Min Kwok, and Edward Quach, all from the Food Science Lab at Auckland University of Technology. I produced this episode with help from Ellen Wykers and William Ray. Sound engineering was by William Saunders, and Liz Garton is executive producer of Our Changing World. If you haven't listened to RNZ's Black Sheep podcast yet, well, then I highly recommend that you do. It's this collection of awesomely told stories about villains from New Zealand's history. There are 7 seasons already, so you can really get your binge listen on. If you are a regular listener, then I've got great news for you. Black Sheep is returning soon for an 8th season. Head to your app now and make sure that follow button is clicked so you're ready for when the new episodes drop. Te nakwe I whakarongo mai. Thanks so much for listening. Ko Claire Concannon aho. Have a great week. Kia pai, te wiki.